Chelsea and I had been friends since kindergarten. We're not very close anymore, but we were all through elementary school. Whenever we were together, strange things would always happen. Sometimes scary, sometimes just abnormal. Usually, when we would tell people, they'd think we were bluffing. I admit, on some occasions we would, but there was one particular time that didn't require any bluffing. It was her birthday party that day. We must have been in about 3rd, maybe 4th grade. I was the one friend that she had spent the night, so after everyone had left, we began to color this huge poster that I got for her. It was raining outside, and as it got later, the rain got heavier and it eventually began to storm. It must have been well after midnight, because we were both exhausted but refused to go upstairs. We were enjoying ourselves. We didn't feel like going to sleep yet. The lightning was starting to get pretty severe, and it would light up the entire house. She had windows everywhere, behind us, in front of us, to either side. On my left side was the front door. Next to the front door were, surprise, windows. They had curtains over them, but they were laced so we could easily see through them. During a fairly violent flash of lightning, both of us must have looked to the windows at the same time, and we saw the shadow of a man walk in front of them. We were pretty sure the front door was locked, but this still didn't prevent us from panicking. We looked at each other, both of us with wide eyes, and we knew we'd both see the same thing. At first, we thought it was a person. But what kind of person would just walk right onto someone's porch? Then we realized he was dressed odd. He had what seemed to be a top hat and a cape, or that's what it looked like. We didn't get a particular look at him. He appeared to be only a shadow. Could it have been a ghost? Both in hysterics. We tried to convince ourselves everything was okay, and to just run upstairs as fast as we could to tell her parents. Our first stop, though, was to her bedroom, also on the front side of the house, so we could look out our windows to see if we saw anyone. Nobody. We were sure this couldn't be true. We'd both seen the guy. He couldn't have gone too far, if it was a man even. Since he was gone, we just sat on our bed and replayed it over and over again to each other. Had it really happened? Of course, we both saw the same exact thing. We talk about how oddly he was dressed, and even though it made more sense for it to be some crazy guy walking on our porch, hey, maybe he was just trying to get out of the rain. We were sure it was a ghost. If it was a man, wouldn't we have been able to make him out more clearly? He was more like a shadow than anything. Fear still running through us, the storm still active. The light suddenly went out. Both of us screamed, ran into the hallway crying, and down to her parents' room. We barged in, and the lights came back. It was just the storm we knew, but at no worst possible time could the lights have gone out. We told them what we'd seen, and they just rolled their eyes and told us we were just tired and to go back to sleep. Her dad told us to even go downstairs and make sure nobody was there. He did, and we went back to her bedroom. A few minutes later, he came upstairs and said he saw no one. We continued to talk about it all night, but we eventually fell asleep. Neither of us had ever seen anything like it again, but we still talk about it whenever we do talk. It was one of the most craziest experiences either of us has ever endured, and that marked the beginning of my speculation that maybe there is more than this physical earth we live on. Ever since, I've believed in ghosts. Hey, I guess seeing really is believing. This is a paranormal story about my bedroom door. Everything started about 6 years ago, when I had just reached 7 years of age. The incidents began about the time when I had my lock removed from my door due to the few times when I locked it and it wouldn't reopen. Now, since my house is old, so are most of the built-in appliances. For instance, I've pull-chain toilets in an old-fashioned fireplace, so when I had my lock removed, I had to remove all of it. Now my door wouldn't even close. 2 nights after the lock close system was removed, there was an atrocious storm. I woke to a flash of forked lightning in the field across my house and felt the sudden urge to turn my light on. The minute my light flickered, My door began to violently slam open and close. Turning to the door, I noticed my window was opened. After noticing this, I was quickly calmed. As my hands reached for the window, the door stopped abruptly. As you can imagine, being so little, I was extremely frightened. Little noises started around me, like the sound of someone writing with a quill or a soft buzzing. Nothing abnormal happened for the next 2 years, until a storm came rolling in off the coast. Once again, I woke up and turned on my light to find the door opening and closing. This time it wasn't with much force at all. But still, I being 9, was still thinking it'd be nothing less than the wind. Not until I turned 11 did I decide to do some thorough research on the matter. I made this decision because I now started to get this cold sensation on my cheek during the summer night storm incidents. My grandmother seemed the only one who would understand. She told me that she knew something was up. She said that about 3 owners ago, a young woman had a child about 6 or 7. Every summer, the child would keep his window open during the night because of the heat. The young woman wasn't very rich, so they only rented out that one room. When the young woman would return from work, she would find the boy's window open and be so mad that she would slam the door open and close to wake the child. In the words of my grandmother, if she had a good night, she would tuck him back in and give him a kiss. But if she had a bad night, she would sit at her desk and write a letter to her sister. I still haven't figured out how my grandmother knew this, or why I had the urge to turn the light on. I still didn't even know why there was a buzzing noise, or why the incidents only happened during thunderstorms. I still have much to unravel, but this is one thing I know. I have a young woman that will always be watching over me. Thanks for reading. I was 16 or 17 years old and worked as a shrimper out of Beaufort, North Carolina. I was trained as my mate by the owner, Captain F, of the boat, who was 72 years old and lacked the strength and stamina of his younger years. Finally, I was given command of this 25-foot channel net boat. The boat was moored at an old fish house on Taylor's Creek that was literally built in one day by the boat owner's father, Captain P, in the 30s. I had strange feelings while working in the old fish house quite often, but never felt quite anything malevolent. Other sounds were heard, but I always attributed the sounds to nets and other equipment settling in the loft and other places. This place was stuffed. Captain P, when alive, had a reputation for being a hard and even abusive individual. He supposedly tolerated few people and was particularly hard on his boys. I knew 2 of them well. One night, I was shrimping in the river when a huge storm started approaching from the west. Quickly, I retrieved the net into the towed skiff and headed for the fish house just as the storm hit. The storm was as bad as I assumed it would be, and I could only move at a slow pace. The seas in the river rose up about 4 feet, and the rain came down in torrents, but I eventually reached the relative safety of Taylor's Creek. The rain and wind subsided before I reached the fish house, but the lightning was still illuminating the skies as the storm passed to the east. During a few of the lightning flashes, I saw a face looking out of the window, wearing a pair of glasses. The face was definitely a male face and had a thoughtful look on his face. As I approached the dock, I saw Captain F standing on the dock frantically pacing back and forth. He helped me tie the boat, inquired to my safety, and then went on board to make sure that the boat was okay. As I walked through the door to the fish house, I saw Captain F's wife sitting on the old couch that was inside. She was very calm and smiling cheerfully. I asked her what she found amusing, and she said she was laughing at her husband being such a tizzy over my safety. She then stated that she knew I was okay because Captain P told her so. I asked if Captain P wore glasses, and she went on to describe the wire-rimmed glasses I had seen during my approach. She added that Captain P has been standing by the window, amused, at his son's antics on the dock. Captain F's wife did not get along with Captain P when he was alive, but she told me that since his death, they got along quite well. He had been drawn to her, as she was very sensitive and no one else in the immediate family could see him. She had many spiritual experiences in her life. She later told me that she only saw him in the fish house, usually when Captain F was worrying about something. There was one other time Captain F's wife had a psychic experience that I witnessed, but I will save this for another time. Thank you for reading. My story, I guess, is fairly tame compared to some I've read on your site, but nevertheless, it creeped me right the hell out, and none of the few people I've told really seem to believe, so here it goes. First of all, this happened about 5 years ago. I travel a lot, like a whole lot, and at this time this happened, I was traveling from home, which is northwest Ohio, to Georgia, just outside of Atlanta. It's pretty much a straight shot down I-75. It takes about 10 hours, give or take. I only mention I travel a lot because I want it understood. I've crisscrossed the country I don't care to think how many times, and nothing remotely close to anything I'd consider paranormal or ghostly has ever happened to me, and I've been on a lot of shady roads that are the prime candidates for bad horror movies. As a slap to the collective face of those movies, this happened on I-75, probably one of the most traveled roads in the country. Being the major north-south highway of the Midwest, it usually has quite a lot of traffic. Sometimes it doesn't though. So I was traveling south on 75 heading for Atlanta, and as I mentioned, I travel a lot, so I have my habits. On a longest drive like this, I prefer to leave in the evening just as rush hour is ending and make the bulk of the drive overnight. Pro tip to any others, 75 is almost completely deserted after about 10 p.m. unless you are very close to a city, and that is why I do it. I was making pretty decent time, and just starting into the hilly, not quite mountainous part of the trip in the Kentucky-Tennessee area when it starts raining, and I mean really coming down and hard, the kind of rain where you can barely see where you're going. This forced me to slow down a good clip, as the road gets pretty twisty in some areas through there, and God knows, I didn't want a horrible plunge off the side of the road in the middle of a rainstorm in the middle of the night, as I'm sure you understand. So I'm probably plugging along about 45-ish, much less in a curve, in the low 20s, give or take, when the incident begins. At first, this won't sound too weird, but I will explain. What I saw, coming up on a curve, was a hitcher on the side of the road. Just that. Pretty common, right? Well, maybe. Except it's 1:30 in the morning on a weekday. It's raining, an absolute torrent, and it's I-75 up in the hills. Nowhere really near what I consider walking distance to a town or village. To be fair, I'm a little lazy fatty, so it doesn't have to be that far before I consider it out of walking distance. I'm sorry now that I wasn't paying closer attention to mile markers or whatnot to really know where exactly I was, but it was definitely north of Knoxville, and definitely in Tennessee. Anyway, I digress. A hitcher, in the middle of the horrible rainy night, nowhere near a town. I should mention, he appeared to be going my way, and I hadn't seen a breakdown or anything. Traffic was also very light, not surprising considering the conditions and time. The entire story spans about 30 to 45 minutes, perhaps an hour. I can't imagine I saw more than 1 or 2 cars at that time, all northbound. I was slowed down considerably due to the curve, so I got a decent look at him. Pretty ragged looking, not surprising considering. Stood out most was the extra wide brimmed hat. I'm not a hat expert, so the closest I can compare it to is a sombrero, but that's not quite right, as it was just plain brown. I don't know, it stood out. Framed there in the light of my high beams, he was a sorry sight indeed. Nothing really remarkable about his appearance, except how out of place the fellow was. Now normally, I'm a pretty charitable guy, and always welcome some company. Bad movies aside, hitchers are pretty normal, decent folks, and provide some break up to the monotony of long highway drives. But I'm also not a stupid guy. Wee hours of the morning, middle of nowhere for all intents and purposes, and generally unsavory looking fellow? No thanks. With only the slightest pang of guilt, I pass him by. Maybe next time, pal. But next time wasn't as far off as I thought, and here is where the weirdness comes in. Less than 5 minutes later, Approaching another curve in the road is the same exact man by the side of the road. I smoked some pot back in the day, I'll admit, but my memory isn't so shot that I forget such an out-of-place figure inside of 5 minutes. I've already admitted I wasn't going that fast, but I was going a damn sight faster than a man goes on foot in a rainstorm, I know that much. The road is curvy there, but at no point does it curve back on itself in such a way as to allow a pedestrian to go cross-country and come out ahead either. It simply is not possible, but there he was. It still gives me a tiny chill, just like it did at the time. I actually started to slow down a bit, just in disbelief, and to confirm what I was seeing. I couldn't make out his features in the poor light of my high beams, not through the awful rain, but I can't mistake that hat. And I didn't see eyes, but I know we were making eye contact. It was a very surreal moment. With nothing else to do, I gave myself a mental shake and sped up as much as I dared and put it behind me. So I thought. I had almost convinced myself I had merely been road dazed or something. It happens, usually not to me, but occasionally. You just get so strung out from a long drive that your brain sort of goes into autopilot. Unsettling. But I hadn't been driving that long. I was maybe 5 or 6 hours in, but I'd almost convinced myself when after about another 20 minutes or so, you guessed it, Mr. Hat is back at the side of the road. The rain's lit up a bit by now, and there's no mistaking at all that it's the same figure. I won't do the math because frankly I suck at it. But this guy has gone the same distance on foot in roughly 30 minutes that I have in a car traveling between 30 and 60 miles per hour, went on a straight bit. Just give the guy gold if he shows up at the summer games. That little joke just came to me now as I write this, and it's quite clever I thought, by the way. But at the time what I felt, I will describe as my previous little chill's big brother. I was literally shaking all over at the sheer impossibility of it. I did not slow down to confirm this time. I gunned it as much as I deemed safe, and then some, and didn't let up until I got deep into Knoxville and found a service station to pull over, gas up, and calm down. I was sitting at the pump for probably a good 20 to 30 minutes. I was that shook up. I have no idea what exactly I saw that night, and I don't overly want to know, to be entirely honest. I won't utterly dismiss the possibility of 3 separate hitchhikers with very similar hats, as I like to think of myself as open-minded, and the simplest explanation is usually the truth, and all that. But frankly, I don't find that explanation all that simple. I'll let the readers decide, I guess. The rest of my trip, as well as the return trip, continued without incident. I've desperately crossed the country coast to coast a time or two since that night, but I've never had another experience I would call ghostish. Is that a word? Although there have been a few other weird incidents over the years, this is the only one I feel merits a place in your archives. Thanks for reading, and hopefully believing. My mother had a hideaway closet in her room that she used for storage. I never really paid any attention to this closet until I started to hear this faint cry of a small child. I was confused because my brother and I were grown, and the only person who lived downstairs was a 90-year-old lady that never had any children or grandchildren. After nights of hearing this cry, I noticed the closer you got to my mom's room, the louder the cries got. Nothing was in my mom's room, and then I opened the closet. I noticed that you could see the bottom half of the house, so I ran and got my brother. When we came back, we noticed that there used to be a staircase that led upstairs where we lived, but later, they made it into a duplex and boarded it off. Anyway, here's the scary part. When we looked down, we both saw a small boy, no older than 5 or 6. He had a shaggy brown haircut, white socks with blue stripes pulled all the way up to his knees, a pair of navy blue shorts with a white stripe on the side, and a white shirt with blue stripes going across, very late 70s to early 80s attire. After investigation from the landlord, we found out that years ago, there lived a mother, father, and a small boy, and the parents would stick the boy on the staircase as punishment and shut the door. Well, one day, they forgot about him, and apparently went on vacation. He died in the staircase. When me and Nick looked down, I asked the boy if he was okay. He looked up at us and literally disappeared. We never heard another cry.
I guess he needed someone to know what happened to him before he could move on. Hey guys, whew, that was a doozy, and I mean recording all of this. I don't know why, but today was a really difficult time to actually get a video out and actually record everything. I mean, I still did it for you guys because I love you, and I couldn't get a video not out, you know what I mean? So, I mean, I'm just completely out of it right now. But I want to say thank you so much again for supporting me even through all these endeavors. Even as difficult as it may get, I'm not quitting, guys, because you know what? Recording, even with all the background noise and all the difficulties surrounding, what happens, you can still accomplish things as long as you put your mind to it. And I just want to let you guys know that I really wanted to do this and get this out to you so I can have that second video out for you guys. So there you go. Please comment, like, and subscribe. Because seriously, I'm out of breath, I'm about to pass out, and I just want you guys to enjoy something. I'm a content creator, and I create content for you guys to enjoy. Whew. No, seriously. Okay, Phantom is going to sign off now. So, before you know it, I'll be gone, just like a ghost. I probably turned into a ghost by now, even though I really am a ghost, but whatever. Anyway, guys, good night, good morning, and I'll see you in the next video. I'm going to hit the hay. Whew.